we're with StakeCat. We're also Lido lifeguards, and we'll be talking you through setting up a CSM Validator with your friends using DVT. So, Gary, if you'd like to take it away.
Okay. Yep, just an intro on ourselves. We're StakeCat, a node operator coming from a background of solo staking and have experience in DVT. We're big supporters of home staking, and this is why we're supporting the Lido community lifeguards to help promote stakers on Ethereum. So what are we going to do today? Going to explain a little bit about DVT, how DVT can be integrated with the CSM. It's not going to be a detailed step-by-step walkthrough, like covering all the terminal setup from start to finish. We don't have enough time to go through that. Instead, I'm just going to cover the basic concepts and give an understanding of how you can integrate DVT with CSM. Right, so why solo staking? What is a solo staker? In the strict definition, a solo staker is someone who runs a 32 ETH validator alone and not part of an entity. They're the ones in complete control of the setup, maintenance, and keys. So basically, these are independent node operators validating. And why is this important? Well, this is important for network security. The more solo stakers, the more decentralized and robust the network. ETH staked secures the network from attack, and there's really no point if this is concentrated within a few actors that could be easily targeted. Then it's not decentralized, it's not censorship resistant. Ideally, what we want is tens of thousands of independent node operators or validators distributed like across the globe. How many solo stakers? We actually did research into this earlier this year and discovered that there is at least 10,000 unique solo stakers on the network. There's potentially a lot more, but this is looking at like a confident lower bound based on like high confidence identification and some additional behavior. And this was using data from our StakeCat repository for the solo staker list, which is a list we maintain to identify solo staker addresses. And if you're curious, you can find more detailed methodology on the repo.
There's also quite a detailed report about solo stakers aren't going away on our website. So if you're into a bit more detail and a bit more data research into it, then go look at that as well.
Yeah, so just looking at count or the number of solo stakers, that's, this isn't everything. I think it's great that Ethereum has this many independent node operators. There's no other network that compares. But the share of the network is also important. So I'm talking about how much of the network stake that these independent node operators represent. And again, looking at like a high confidence band, we see just under sort of 10% of the network is under solo stakers. And this was around March this year, so things have likely changed, but it's just to give a picture of the state of the network.
Someone, just to nip in there as well, someone asked me about updating that list. I think we're going to try and maintain that repository at least once a year now, if not more regularly.
Yeah, I updated it around the merge, or anniversary of the merge. But anyway, challenges. If you decide to be a solo staker, this obviously comes with a number of responsibilities. There's a few of them there, like technical, resource, compute. But by far, I think the biggest challenge now is the bond requirement. So 32 ETH, that's about 100K and some change to run a solo staking like vanilla validator. This bond requirement is, can become increasingly restrictive as the network grows. So the rate of new solo stakers joining the network is likely to diminish, and solo staker share can represent an increasingly smaller portion over time. This is not good. So what are the solutions? DV, distributed validators. This is one or more validators, a validator being 32 ETH, but being operated across a number of nodes that are online simultaneously and have control of, or each have control over a subset of a validator's private keys. So the validator key is essentially split. Another way to look at it is it's like turning a validator into a multisig. There's benefits to this, such as fault tolerance. A cluster can have a minimum quorum, meaning that not every node operator has to be online at the same time. So if there's a fault or downtime or maintenance, validator liveness can continue on until like that node operator is back online. Client diversity is another one. Multiple clients in one validator. increase security, reduce slashing risk, distributed keys. So the keys are distributed and no full key is in one location, meaning the key, like risk of a key getting compromised is greatly reduced. Now, squad staking. Might have been hearing the term squad staking somewhat. So what is this? This is when a group of individuals, such as a group of friends, decide to work together to run a single validator or even multiple validators as a team or a squad. The benefits to this, you get the same benefits in the slide before. So as a home operator, you can see how these features can be useful. I've run in a squad with members of StakeCat operating from home, and there's been instances where someone had network issues, and it takes a while to fix. Took a while to troubleshoot, but the validator uptime is not affected at all. But specifically for squad staking, in the context of squad staking for home operators, like lower financial barrier, that's an obvious one. Decentralization, so DVT not only empowers new stakers because of that reduced bond, the lower financial barrier to entry, it's also can benefit decentralization as you end up with many more nodes on the network by these independent operators. Collaboration, I'll touch on that because I think this is a really underrated aspect of being that running validators, particularly if you're new or less technical, this can be quite intimidating. You're setting up a client, configuration, all this, but joining a squad creates a very collaborative environment where you can help each other out with any potential issues. So this is ideal for new stakers. Yeah, it's also not just the software setup. There's a number of things that can go wrong. Even the most unexpected things can happen in this example here. This was an Ethernet cable at one point. So there's a reason why every single exposed cable in my house is covered with tube grip or heavy insulation.
Gary's the big cat man, but throughout we launched our own at StakeCat. So we sort of pioneered the way in this squad staking. So at StakeCat, we are 7 solo stakers come together through DVT, all like-minded people, all solo stakers, grassroots Ethereum users come together, grouped together through DVT, and now we've started StakeCat. I really hope that's the start of something new, and now we've got the tech built out with DVT. Hopefully we start to see more of this, solo stakers, maybe like-minded people teaming up together to sort of become these middle tier or tier 2 operators and really strengthening the Ethereum ecosystem. I think that would be great to see. But we launched on mainnet beta last year straight away when OBOL came out, and this is just one of the issues we faced and still maintain 99% uptime. I had major internet issues at one point that took about a week to fix. It wasn't my fault. It was the internet service provider who actually misconfigured on their end, so nothing I could do, but still took quite a while to troubleshoot because it wasn't my fault. It was someone else's fault. But to get to that point, it took a while, and we still maintained 99% uptime. I'll play the video again because it's funny. Bad cat.
Yeah, this is just to give a visual on how DV looks on the node stack. On the left, you got your traditional setup. Actually, on the right. Yeah, you've got your traditional setup with one node. That will be your execution and consensus client, and a single validator client with the entire key or keys. But then on the other side, you have an example of a DV setup where you have a sort of middleware client to communicate between the validator clients. Yeah. And then this is just an example looking at SSV. The net penetration of DVs right now looks around, 5%. It's just to demonstrate that DV is still relatively small part of the network, and for the reasons outlined earlier, we believe this is going to increase over time. Okay, so CSM, or the community staking model, or community staking module, is a bonded staking solution by Lido. It's been covered a lot here at this event and by others. I'm not going to go into great detail of the setup, but another solution that reduces the barrier to entry for new operators. This will eventually be permissionless. It's an early adopter phase right now on mainnet. You can get up to 12 validators per node operator. Let's look at the
Yeah, a bit by the bond curve in this is really interesting. So we were highlighting the barrier at the start. I think the biggest barrier is the 32 ETH. That is a huge amount of money for one person to put up. What the CSM allows you to do is it lowers that bond, so you're putting up a bond to then run a validator. So the early adopters are running one validator for 1.5, then it's dropping to 1.3, then the common curve will go up to 2.4. Now, how do we further solve this? I see DVT being a solution where that barrier is lowered even more. So depending on the number of operators you use in your squad, then that ETH bond that you put up can be 4 times lower. Or a quarter of whatever that is. Or if you want more users, then it'll be whatever it is. But greatly reducing that barrier to entry, and also talking about that collaboration point. You do get to lean on each other, help each other out, meet like-minded people. So it's definitely worth trying out.
Yeah, also, you can see how this can allow you to, as a group, sort of scale up your max validators, giving you exposure to much more ETH matched to your bond. What about incentives? Like,
yeah, a bit about incentives as well, actually. So you actually could get a much greater return on your ETH as well. So Lido are currently all the DVT going through CSM. They're putting into the vault that they've got, which is collecting OBOL points and is also giving SSV tokens in return. So it's a chance to sort of super boost your yield as well and play an airdrop if you think OBOL are going to airdrop. Who knows?
yeah, so I said it's on an early adopter phase right now. Yeah, if you might find yourself on this if you've been a solo staker or a credential holder, if you've been on any of the OBOL testnets, or even some with Lido and their simple DVT program. Another thing is Gnosis solo stakers are also included. They're included in our solo staker list. But yeah, mostly good for new stakers. There was a phase with the testnet. And also, yeah, maybe just keep an eye on this. I expect that to open up again. So that will give a chance for new stakers to potentially get on the next wave of opening up. The end goal is obviously this will be permissionless. What was it? Oh, yeah, I mean, just to summarize, so combining CSM and DVT, this reduces the barrier, reduces the barrier to entry. It's less daunting to work in a group, and then you get some security benefits and increased decentralization, more nodes, more clients. Yeah, so 2 main solutions for DVT right now, and that's OBOL and SSV. There's technical differences between them. There are others, there are a few others, but these are the most matured solutions for a while now. In an ideal world, anyway, there would be like many implementations with different approaches. So there's technical differences between even say OBOL and SSV. We're not going to go into detail on those technical differences, but these are the basic steps if you're setting up with CSM and integrating DVT. Find your squad. It could be team of friends. Find your cluster. You'd set up multi-sig with that squad. You'd create and split your validator keys with your chosen DVT solution, and then you set up your node operators following those, following the guides for whichever one you're using, and that will include setting up an Ethereum node. And then you would, at the end, deposit. You would deposit not through the normal Ethereum launchpad, but through the CSM widget. Yeah, so I mean, a multi-sig. What is this? This is a contract wallet. All transactions must be approved by multiple signers. The signers are the regular Ethereum wallets. So how does this apply to squad staking? So let's say you found your cluster and you want to pull capital. Well, say trust minimization. With the multi-sig wallet, you're not trusting a single individual in control of those pooled funds. The split contract, this will be a custom contract that you'll create to distribute the rewards. Yeah, so if you're setting up with DVT, whichever one, the ideal setup, either one is use a multi-sig and a custom splitter contract to distribute the rewards.
Yeah, I think as well with a slight security risk as well, the multi-sig and splitter contract allows you to it gives you a bit of peace of mind. The splitter contract as well, I actually spoke to Ivan about this just the other day, because I was saying as well, you could just use your multi-sig and send your rewards to that, and it will save you another contract risk, not as much with a splitter. And then it's once you've depreciated your validator, once exit, it's just the one transaction. But he also highlighted a potential benefit of using the splitter contract is when you're working with people you don't know, you're able to, when you collect your rewards, the splitter contract does it automatically. So it reduces the risk of people collaborating to affect one person. So small risk. I like to think people are good. People in this space are nice generally. So when you get in the Discord and find like-minded people, it genuinely will be fine. But it's always best to have that extra layer of security using a multi-sig and splitter contract.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the steps, just a high-level overview. You can find this in the docs. So I'm not going to get into it too much, but you basically clone the OBOL project repository. Charin is the OBOL's middleware client, which enables validators to be run by a group of independent node operators, a cluster or a squad. Your ENR is a public-private key pair associated with that node, and each squad member will create their own, and this is used to represent each member's Charin client. It'll look something like that, and then you back this up because it needs to, if you ever need to recover your node. This is all detailed in the docs, and it'll be linked at the end. But that's your basic. Set up your OBOL node, and you would assign a squad leader, which would collect these ENRs and collect the squad's addresses, and then you would move to creating what we call a DV cluster configuration on the launchpad. I can actually show, just let's connect it up and show what it looks like.
Yeah, I think we've got to a point now. We really sort of pioneered the way for this. It was quite clunky to begin with, but pretty much all the steps, apart from a couple of lines of code in terminal, it's all now front end UI. I mean, it's pretty much as easy as it's going to get. There's a few extra things that could be advanced, but I mean, it is super simple now. When it's in that front end, it really doesn't get much easier.
Yeah, sorry, switching between computers here, so it's a bit messy, but I set this up earlier as an example, just to show the launchpad. So this would be with a cluster of 4, which I had gone through those previous steps of setting up your ENR key and cloning the OBOL repository, and you would collect the addresses, like I said before, and here. So this is it's actually integrated in with OBOL on the launchpad already. You would simply select Lido CSM here, and this will automatically fill in the withdrawal address and the fee recipient for you. Note this is Haleski testnet as well, but if you were on mainnet, it would fill in for mainnet. Yeah, and then you would just create cluster configuration.
Yeah,
the ENR I described before, that's it's basically a public-private key pair unique to the Charin client. This allows you to identify which Charin clients in the cluster. So that's the public key, and the private key would be on the OBOL node.
Yeah, sorry, the walls, are those up all?
Oh, up.
Oh no,
They're just.
you'd collect these are just the addresses. So everyone's going to create this everyone's going to sign and accept this configuration. And if you walked through the steps there, you'd end up with the next part, which is, yeah, so that command would be the end of that. That was the configuration, and the next step is the DKG, yeah, which would look something like that.
Yeah, it's basically a command spit out on the front end. This is where it gets really simple. It's one command on the front end, and you'll paste it into your terminal, and that's the output you should see.
Yeah, and then there's just some additional configurations to do with CSM. It's an environment file, which is kind of like an advanced mode. You would copy the example in the working directory of the project repository that you'd clone locally, and that you'd set the following variables.
Yeah, I think it's just important to highlight here as well. Like we don't really want to get into the technical details because the docs now are incredibly easy. It's literally copy and paste on everything. There are a couple of things to highlight. The Builder API enabled and MEV Boost. You want to make sure they're enabled and you've all got the same relays. It's still quite easy to misconfigure, and if there's a misconfiguration between your members, then it can fail. You might miss the block proposal. There's plenty of professional setups that have got this wrong. Lots. We've got it wrong ourselves. So there's no, it's very easy to do. It's just one to highlight moving forwards. And if you make the mistake once, trust me, you won't make it again. So just make sure you're all configured correctly. Yeah. So that's sort of all rounded up. There's also SSV. So SSV, again, their docs are super useful, super useful. But on the SSV docs, it tells you how to do it basically without creating your own or running your own SSV node. I think that's one way of doing it. You can do it in the CSM. Another way would be running your SSV node and selecting yourself as a public operator with other public operators, which is good because then you're running and learning how to run the node. I think the end goal, and within the spirit of squad staking, would be getting your squad and running it as a private cluster. Before I go through that, Ivan's got a really good guide on that. Completely different from SSV's way of doing it, and like I said, I think in the spirit of squad staking and collaboration with each other, finding like-minded people, that's a better way of doing it. But there are different options in the way of doing it. So the first way would be creating the validator keys. I'm sure maybe most of you know how to do that, but it's basically creates a new mnemonic. You select the number of validators, what chain. You need to input your withdrawal address, so make sure you use the Lido one. That's really important, and in other front ends that's done for you. But this, you need to make sure you go on the Lido operator portal and get the addresses right. The next steps, save the keys, and then you can go and create your SSV node. So again, really simple docs to follow, but you're basically creating a password for your encrypted private keys. Run the Docker command, create the config, again, copy and paste, changing the relevant files. Again, like we mentioned with OBOL, make sure you've got MEV enabled and your configuration to your beacon node set, and then run the Docker command, and that's it. The next bit is going into that encrypted private key file and taking the public key to then link on the front end. So this is where you register an operator. So all you need for that is the front end, the wallet connected, and then you paste your public key to it. So if you're doing it by the SSV docs, then make it a public operator. If you're doing it by Ivan's guide, then I'd recommend making it a private operator, and you'll need to select your SSV fee. If it's private, 0. If it's public, it can also be 0, but choose what is economically best for you. and then run the DKG. Similar setup, you need your config file. It's a copy and paste. A couple of things to highlight is your operator ID that you just created in the last step, and then the port 3030. Make sure that's open to the internet. And then it's a case of copying and pasting the Docker command to run it. So once you've got that, it's then on to creating the DV cluster. One member connects a safe wallet, and that's all done through, it's the same steps as we had in the safe wallet and splitter contract. So they'll connect their wallet, select Distributed Validator. Again, this is a bit pointless walking through because it is all on the front end UI. It is really, really simple. Generate new key, select your operator. Ideally, if you're using SSV's way, ideally one of these operators is your own. And then you go through the process of splitting the keys. So select DKG offline. Make sure you're using the Lido withdrawal address, and copy and paste the command line it gives you as the output. Again, super simple. Go through all the steps. You can't really mess up, and it gives you a command line. Put it in, and there's quite a few more steps with signing. It maybe looks a bit confusing on the UI, but it's really quite simple in terms of steps. There's a few buttons to click as well. Ivan's got sort of highlighted pictures, so it's really helpful if you're a more visual learner and you don't like reading through the docs as much. There's some good pictures and help there. But you'll select the validator to register, SSV validator funding period, so that's how long you wish to run it for. So you can, they'll take a small amount of SSV for running it for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's up to you. Accept or read the terms and conditions and understand the slashing risks. And then quite a few signatures on the safe wallet, so this is where the collaboration coordination comes into it. It's easiest if you're all together while doing this because it can be a bit of a pain to get them signed, but necessary for security. And then another one, Lido's fee wallet address, again on the operator portal, so make sure you use that. And then it's all the same from this point to deploy the keys onto Lido CSM. Another front end, very, very easy to use UI.
Yeah, so like Ali was saying, the last step here is was deposit, and that would be through the CSM widget. So any squad member with the early adopter, and if it's mainnet, would be able to log on and make this deposit. You need to have enough ETH to cover the bond, and the deposit file or deposit data file from the DV setup, either that's with SSV or OBOL. I can actually go on the widget and let's just show this. Yeah, so I had a key ready, which was from the Launchpad steps earlier, and then important to remember it was using the ensuring it was the CSM tab selected, and that would have the Lido contract set or auto-filled. So anyone who had an early adopter would connect their wallet, and you can upload the deposit data file here. That's just an example. Yeah, so this is going to check that the contracts are correct. If it wasn't compatible with CSM, it would come up with an error. So the key difference here, important when it comes to DVT, is there's this drop-down, which is specify custom addresses.
Yeah, so I think this is probably one bit that's not been touched on. There's so many helpful guides out there. Keep saying it, the guides are now at a point where they are incredibly helpful. There's lots of good video guides as well, but this bit hasn't been touched on too much. But this is the sort of extended version or custom address feature. So it's the rewards address and manager's address. The rewards address is the split contract that you made, and then the manager address is the multi-sig. So the whole way through we were talking about kind of ideally doing it as a squad staking Again, depending on what setup you do, especially with the SSV way, be careful about what reward and manager addresses you use. Make sure you understand which is which. But for this squad one, it's the splitter contract and the multi-sig wallet.
Yeah, so I mean, the key differences are really just how the key's created at the start and then the deposit. So here you've got your reward address. In this field reward address, that would be your splitter contract, and the manager address would be the multi-sig. And then the other thing you have to do is make sure that this extended box is also selected. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have those addresses, so I'm not going to go this, but I'm just showing that that would be the final step. Yeah, I mean, we've only really outlined the basic steps here. DVT is quite new.
Yeah, I think as well, it's important to mention, like, the idea is we are onboarding more people to understand Ethereum staking. And I hope this has whetted your appetite a little bit. So, I mean, if there is an interest, come up, speak to us at the end. If you want to get into or learn more about DVT and you're maybe still not as confident, or I'm going to launch my own public operator, or if you want to try and do it privately, I can always help out with that on SSV. Or OBOL, we can do a separate workshop that goes into a bit more the technical detail. I think that would be quite interesting to do at one point anyway, but it would be nice if we gauge some interest first. I suppose just a little bit of fun. I know there's like cat chewing cable in the middle, but I don't know if you're aware of the seagull meme, but it was just Lido, Lido CSM, building up, DVT, and then yes, squad. So it's compulsory to shout squad once you've created your squad, and shout as much as you can. So squad.
The best squad gets a free limited edition StakeCat t-shirt.
Whoever shouts squad gets a free t-shirt. So get shouting squad.
Oh, and these are the guides here for each OBOL's guides, SSV and CSM. And the OBOL and SSV ones, that links you to the actual detailed parts on CSM. So if you were to set this up, you'd have to have a look there. As I said, we've only briefly overviewed the kind of the steps and showing how you would integrate DVT into CSM as a squad. And there's it would take a lot longer to go through it, like step by step.
Yeah, any questions, or you want to chat, create a squad? I suppose that was sort of it. We had some slides at the end. There is also no-code solutions as well. So DAppNode have done an amazing job. And I was speaking to Oshin as well in terms of getting this to a one-click solution. So you could end up, well, it's not far off that just now, but you could end up having an OBOL on a DAppNode where it's one click and it launches your DV. So pretty cool.
Can you go back to the dancing cat?
OBOL is free to use. It's there's no cost to it. SSV is a cost. So when you're selecting your operators, there's a cost per action basically. So when you're selecting your operators, you'll see a fee in one of the columns. That's an important one to maybe highlight as well, because basically maybe don't.
So OBOL is free to use. It's a middleware, but you can optionally opt into giving up 1% of your staking rewards to the OBOL collective, to the, what is it called again? Retroactive funding program. In exchange, you will get OBOL points. What OBOL points will convert into? Maybe tokens, maybe other stuff. Yeah, they can't say for sure, but points usually means tokens. For SSV, if you're forming clusters within your friends, right, you can form a private cluster. You can set the fee to 0. In that case, no one gets a commission. The key holder receive the full rewards. Yeah. But if you want to select other SSV operators as part of a DVT cluster, then you have to pay whatever fee they posted. And it could range from like maybe like 0.5 SSV tokens to 1.5 SSV tokens. That's what's seen on mainnet usually. Some people charge like 10 SSV per year as well. Yeah. So that's the state of the commissions for both.
Yeah, so if you want to do it as a squad, there wouldn't be a fee because you could just set it up privately. But say if you're friendless, then maybe you would you could select some public SSV operators, but there would likely be a fee because they're likely not going to do it, for nothing. Is any more questions?
Yeah, is anyone if you want to stick about and form a cluster as well, that would be cool, but feel free to leave if you want.